Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week, I talked to all three members of the band Gramma. The band put out their EP Super Trend in February of this year, following a bit of time off since their debut. During the interview, we chatted about the band's history, a project that got scrapped, which led to Super Trend, and what's coming up next for the band. It's Logan, Tyler, and James, all right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How are y'all doing today?
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Has it been a pretty chill day? Or no? Oh, rip. Well, before we kind of get into it, you want to quick introduce yourselves? I kind of said your names up front, but kind of give at least a voice to the name.
I'm Logan. I sing and play guitar.
I'm James. I play bass.
I'm Tyler, and I play drums.
Awesome. Well, we always kind of start things off by getting some background information on everybody. So talk to me a little bit, or individually, kind of how you came together to form the band Gramma.
Well, I met Logan when we were like 6 years old. We were at like some kid's birthday party at a community center, and we were playing tag and freeze tag. Yeah, and I like kept tagging him over and over again. I was like, tag, you're it, tag, you're it, tag, you're it. And then he kneed me in the nuts. And we've been friends ever since. We started like taking guitar lessons at the same time and shit. And then started the band when we were, I think, like 17, something like that.
Yeah.
Then we asked Jim to join a couple years later.
Yeah.
Good. What year was that? Kind of those like, were you playing shows right away then as the duo?
Yeah, pretty much. I think we played shows for like 2 years as just a two-piece.
So what were those years like? You kind of started. You're still a duo. Was it like 2015, 2016, or?
Yeah, something like that.
Right around there.
Okay, because I remember I managed to catch you guys at the Remo Drive Greatest Hits release show where you opened. I just remember seeing two of you, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty sick."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I still remember that you played. I think it was "I Want to Be Sedated." It was the first song, and I was like, "Interesting, bold choice for a." And then no, it was sick.
We played half of it. That's all we learned.
That's all you learned. You know, that's all you need, really.
It's funny. We played a show like the night before that in front of like 15 people, and we didn't know that we were going to play that show until like a couple hours beforehand. I think one of the bands had a drop or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got the call and fucking like played the same set as we did the night before in front of a lot more people. It was kind of a trip.
Yeah. So, as playing as a duo, why did you want to add, James as the third member as a bassist?
He's loud.
And he's loud. I think it was always kind of an idea to do that. We just never, I don't know. We didn't live in the cities at that point. We were still living in our hometown, Faribault.
Okay.
We didn't really have like access to a lot of like other musicians or anything like that. But we went on tour with one of his other bands, Inconsistent.
Okay.
And kind of got to know him then, and then just asked him to play a couple shows with us, and that kind of just stuck after that.
You mentioned going on tour. It's been like the first time I think you guys really have had any sort of real time period to chill. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, because I always noticed you guys were on tour playing out. Or what has that been like?
Oh, it's been fucking weird. I mean, like, I've been playing shows practically every month since I was like 13. And I mean, I've been going to shows like every weekend, basement shows, concerts, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a weird year.
Yeah, most definitely. So we got it. See, in February you put out your newest EP, Super Trend, which there was a significant chunk of time between Super Trend and your other two, like your self-titled, which was out in 2018. Then you had I can't remember the name before, the one before it, which was like 2017. What was the kind of that break you had? Why were, because it wasn't like you weren't doing anything, again, like we were just talking about. You were touring, you're playing shows and stuff, but why such the long gap between putting out Super Trend and doing the self-titled?
Well, we actually went into the studio for actually the first time we went into an actual studio, like last September, and we recorded 14 songs and just kind of scrapped it. Like it didn't feel right.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. So that was kind of weird. And then we wrote like another record after that and recorded that like last June. And then we're still kind of working on that, but we wanted to put something out. So we had some new songs that we'd written after the fact. And that ended up being an EP.
Okay. What about that first project you went into a studio and you said it didn't feel right and it got scrapped? What about that project did you just not like or felt weird to you?
I think we'd just been playing the songs for like a long time before that. Like we'd had them for like over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, it didn't really feel like what we wanted to do. And it's like you put something out and then you got to like tour on it. You got to try to promote it. And we were already writing new stuff at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of like hard to want to keep working on it.
Gotcha. Did you, sorry, what?
It just didn't feel right.
Yeah. Did you just like fully can all of those songs, or did any of those songs survive as you're going into that next session?
I think we kept like 2 out of the 14.
Yeah, we kept 2 that are gonna make it onto like this next record that we're gonna put out, and actually one of the recordings from that session is gonna make it.
Gotcha. Did you go into this studio with the same person who did Supertrend, or was that a different?
No, we went into the studio with Eric Paulson.
Okay.
He's done like everything we did prior to that. We went to like Tangerine Studios in St. Paul. And it was a really cool experience. Like it was fun and everything, but yeah, it just didn't really work out. But we did Supertrend with Elijah Dietenberg.
Mm-hmm.
We did that at a place called the Villa in Savage.
Gotcha.
It's just like this guy's house that he turned into a studio. It's like right next to a lake. It's like fucking beautiful.
Oh, nice. So that was, you said this was was that your first proper studio experience, or had you been like had you gone into studios before? Because I mean, you worked with Eric, and I know Eric has produced a ton of bands, obviously in the Twin Cities, because he's Eric Paulson. But
well, prior to that, we'd recorded everything that we'd done in like our own studio. It's not even a studio; it's like a fucking like garage warehouse space.
Yeah,
that we were practicing in Faribault, and then we did like our split within Lou at McNally. But so I guess that's technically a studio. But yeah, that was like our first like real like paying for studio time kind of deal.
Gotcha. So what? So you said you wanted to put out Supertrend is like just because you were working on new stuff. Why not wait on that? Because obviously we got the pandemic. You can't really, like you said, you can't really tour on the new stuff right now. And you did that. We'll kind of talk about it in a little bit. You did the hot dish sessions where you put out a couple of songs. Why put out stuff now when you could have just waited, a few more months or maybe another year? Hopefully not, because obviously we don't want that to happen.
Well, I mean, it was already kind of weird just because we haven't put anything out almost 3 years. So it's like, well, we'll just fucking put 5 songs out just for the hell of it. And then we're just like sitting on this record that we're doing right now. So we kind of like screwed it up chronologically because we recorded the record first and then the EP second. I mean, we're still kind of working on the record, but I don't know. I just kind of wanted to have something out there. I mean, it's kind of hard to like imagine putting stuff out right now because you're limited as far like as promotion goes.
Yeah,
tour stuff like it almost seems pointless even trying to like get physical copies of it because most of that shit you sell when you're playing shows.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I feel like if you just wait around and sit on stuff too long, you just kind of I don't know. I'd rather write more music that I'm more excited about.
Gotcha. So the batch of 5 songs that was on Supertrend, that stuff came after you had done the first project that you just kind of canned because that stuff felt old to you. So was that all written relatively recent to the recording of that stuff?
Yeah, we wrote all that probably like 2 months prior.
Oh wow.
So it was a pretty like quick turnaround process as opposed to like what we've done before, where we've written and recorded shit over like the span of a year or whatever.
Okay. I was wondering because I like listening through Super Trend. It felt like, especially compared to listening through the self-titled, it felt definitely a little more tense, I would say, or even like a little more cabin fevery, and just how like aggressive that release is comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird because we wrote all that, without the aspect of like playing shows.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of times when we come up with songs, it's kind of like you imagine playing the songs live when you're like writing them.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just like, we're just like playing to ourselves in practice. So it's kind of just a bit of a different approach. But believe it or not, they're actually kind of like, or at least I think those songs on Super Trend are a lot lighter than like the record that we're working on right now.
Oh, really?
But yeah, that one's actually like even, I think, darker and like more intense.
The EP's kind of pop songs comparatively.
Yeah.
Like more intense. How so?
It's just the record's like heavy, I guess.
Okay.
A little darker side. Maybe.
Yeah, just kind of like darker themes as far as like lyrical content, and like the riffs and production and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Well, what was that conversation like between you and Eric when you were just like, you have the album recorded and you're just like, yeah, I'm not feeling this, like we got to do something else. What was that conversation like?
It was more of a situation where coronavirus just started popping and he wasn't feeling super into it, and it just, I don't know, the flow was wrong. We just didn't make it happen, and it was okay. It worked out for the better. I think we're happy with what happened anyways, so it's all good.
Yeah. With the fact that you wrote these songs and didn't have the ability to almost workshop them to a live audience, did you feel like, was there any other way you're trying to make sure these kind of fit the test when it came to, music that you think of Gramma puts out? Were you trying something different to make sure it resonated the same way potentially, the songs you put out before?
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard when you write music because it's like, I guess my approach has always been, you write what you write, it's kind of like a snapshot of where you are at that time. So as far as like trying to fit some sort of mold of like what we imagine our band to be, it just kind of like, I don't know, that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
Not really thinking about like, comparatively what it might sound like to like the self-titled or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nice thing is about punk music and the DIY culture is you don't have to worry about upholding a brand as much either. You're not trying to fit into that specific box that Grandma checks off for everybody and within the music landscape.
Right, and plus I don't know. I feel like it's kind of boring when like bands put out the same album over and over again. I think it's cool to like have something where it's like, if people wanted to listen to Gramma, they could like listen to them in like any number of moods or situations that they wanted to. If they wanted to listen to like heavier shit or like some of the more lighthearted stuff.
Yeah, with you mentioned this a little earlier. You're talking about how this EP was to the band. Do you consider this just more of a filler to make sure people don't quote unquote forget about you while you work on this next record, or is this something this is you really like keep in the within the catalog of the music you've released so far?
I guess it was kind of like something just to like show that we're still a band, stay relevant to some degree, but
I think it came like writing those songs was just super natural, and like we like going into the studio and recording. We had a really good time doing our record, so we were stoked to try out a new spot, and we just wanted to go into the studio. We kind of just said fuck it, and like we've got songs, why not go record them and put them out? And it just happened like really easily. There's been times where it's been kind of like a hard to clutch the record and like just like finish it in a timely manner, but we did that this time, and I think that was what was super cool about it. Was we had songs and we finished them right away. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think we recorded pretty much everything in like one day.
Oh wow.
All the instrumentals, most of the vocals and shit like that.
Was that like cutting it live on the floor, or were you able to, take some time and really? I mean, with like punk music, sometimes you don't really want to like get too studio magic with it, but
right.
No, I mean, yeah, we recorded it live and like Armadillo, we did that song in one take.
oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, we went back afterward and we
Mhm.
were like, we should probably try to redo it, but then we like did a few more takes of it and we're like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with the first one. So
Yeah.
I kind of like little imperfections and stuff like that. It sounds more human that way, I think.
Yeah, and it's what makes rock music too.
Right.
You mentioned Armadillo, and that was like I think one of my favorite songs off the EP, just because of that like that super slippery kind of single note riff comparatively to like some of the other like the more bar chordy stuff on or just chord driven kind of riffs on that EP, and just in like the Gramma catalog. Is that kind of indicative of what we'll be seeing in the future, or is that just kind of like a
some songs, yeah. I mean, especially like the record we're working on right now, it's like I feel like almost every song is different
mm-hmm.
stylistically, and sometimes it's hard to like necessarily gauge that sort of thing when you're the person writing it, but it's just like I don't know, a lot of times when we like start working on a song, it just kind of starts with a riff,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of like what kind of style it is or whatever, and then we just kind of base the song around that. So I think that's kind of how it went with Armadillo too.
Mm. When writing music, is it a pretty collaborative process when writing for Gramma? Is it like somebody brings a riff to the table and you kind of jam from there?
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. It usually starts with like one of us will bring a riff to the table, and then it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we maybe have like another part or something, but like that. But as far as like the arrangement and like dynamics and all that kind of shit, we usually just kind of jam on that for a little while, and it just kind of figures itself out.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you wrote all these songs for Super Trend pretty quickly. Was it middle of last year, late last year?
I think we started writing for Super Trend around September.
Okay, yeah. What was the space, like the headspace, like the band was in as you were working on these songs?
I think we all moved into different houses, and we were in like just a different, new, fresh situation, each of us, and like it just there was no pressure there to do anything. It just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing with COVID too. Is like, when we'd get together for band practice, we don't have to worry about like working on a set or anything like that. It's just like we're just kind of playing to ourselves, so we had a lot more time to write or just like fuck around. So it was just like really no pressure kind of situation.
Do you typically find that you as a group write better when it's kind of those situations where you don't have to worry about, playing out, or is that kind of, this is just a special circumstance?
I think so. Yeah. Like I personally, being the singer and like writing a lot of the lyrics and stuff, have been super stressed about it and like procrastinated and whatever, and just felt like ultimately bad about it for way too long. And with Super Trend and like some of the stuff we're working on now, it's just like it just seems like it comes a lot easier, and we're not like pushing ourselves too hard to make it perfect. Like we're just writing what we feel like writing, and it feels natural. It's a lot better that way, I think.
Yeah. And plus, like when you are releasing stuff and like playing shows, like you're kind of like behind the ball, or you're like a step behind what you're working on, because you're like practicing songs that you've already put out to play for shows and shit like that. But now it's just like, oh, let's just practice the newest stuff that we've written.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about doing the mix of new stuff with potential old favorites or standbys.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm assuming you're not, given kind of what we were just talking about, you're not a big, do you do a ton of writing during tour then, or do you just kind of, once you have a free moment, given, in the before times, as people like to lovingly call it, you're able to, once you get that break in between playing shows or going on tour, you kind of take that time to write, or are you writing all the time?
I'd say we're kind of writing all the time. I mean, there's a few songs that we've written like on tour, like in the van and stuff like that. But a lot of it's just like, you know, a back catalog of fucking voice memos on our phone of like riffs and stuff like that. And then, you know, we'll get together for practice and we'll like play some songs and it's like, oh, I got this riff. You want to fucking try to do something with it? And then, you know, sometimes it comes together, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, we touched on this a little bit prior, but like you worked with Elijah Dietenberg for the EP, which is different than Eric. You're typically working with Eric Paulson. Did you find it was weird to go into a studio with a different, you know, person to record and, you know, co-produce, or was it relatively natural? Because, you know, you get that like working relationship, especially, you know, you've worked with Eric for most of your releases so far and an upcoming one. Was it weird to try and go somewhere else and try and get a rapport again?
Honestly, not at all. Like, we didn't really know Elijah very well prior to recording with him. Like, we'd hung out with him a couple times. Like, we knew of him. But literally, like, the first day that we got together, it was like, I don't know. I felt like I'd known him like my whole fucking life. We had like the same like musical references and like same ideas when we were in the studio and stuff like that. So it just went really smooth. I love working with Elijah.
Well, moving on a little bit. You did a couple of Hot Dish sessions, or you did 2 videos. Is it just the 2 videos that are coming out through that Hot Dish sessions?
Yeah, it's just those.
Who is? Because that's the same guys who are in Casual, right? That's Zach and Paul.
Yep, that's Zach and Paul, and then Chris. Yeah, and then
It's Chris.
Yeah, then Chris did like the sound stuff and shit like that. But yeah, they just did that like out of their basement. We were the first band that they did that for.
Nice. Was that a reach out to you, or did you just?
Yeah, they just hit us up and they're like, "Hey, we're trying to like start doing sessions and stuff." They bought a bunch of like cameras and audio equipment and basically turned their basement into like a studio. So.
Nice. You plan on doing anything else like live stream wise, or trying to do any other digi gigs coming up, or?
We've played around with the idea of doing live streams, but I don't know. There's just something about it that isn't, to me, just doesn't feel right. Like, I don't know. I like the energy of having an audience there and stuff like that. I feel like it's kind of hard to recreate. But I do like, you know, like live sessions and stuff like that. Like, I always watch like Audio Trees, KEXP sessions and stuff like that.
Well, especially like a band is like, I've only seen you play a handful of times because, like, as you said earlier, like you're always playing out or doing stuff. There's always so many things going on in the cities. So I've only managed to catch you a couple times, but you're a very active and kind of physical band on stage. So like trying to recreate that in front of nobody almost doesn't always work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was the whole incentive of even wanting to be in a band, you know? Like, we were always on to, like, basement shows, and we'd see these bands, like, just fucking killing it, you know? And people singing along and dancing and stuff like that. So it's like, well, fuck, I want to do that. So we'd try to write songs that would be good in that kind of setting and stuff like that.
Well, we're coming into the last few questions here tonight. What have you been doing, or I should say listening to? Because I know we will ask about this every now and again for bands, but what have you been listening to during the pandemic keeping you going?
I've been on Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Death, really hard the last couple weeks.
I'm a really big McCluskey fan. I like dove right into them this year.
I've been listening to a lot of Foo Fighters, self-titled.
Nice. Well, finally, we talked about the Hot Dish sessions. You earlier this week, so on Monday, we recorded this on March 4th. You did you dropped some new merch.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we got some new hoodies and beanies.
And you can get that through your Bandcamp?
Yep.
Nice.
But if people feel like just DMing us on like Instagram instead and cutting out the middleman, we would we wouldn't have to share the money with Bandcamp then.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. Well, then, since you already brought up the Instagram, where can people connect with Gramma on social media?
at Gramma Band. I think on everything.
Yeah, Twitter.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're mildly active.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to sit down and chat with me.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you
Thanks
for having
us.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.